All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, I have my glasses on. So you know why I have my glasses on? Because today, let me turn up this volume a bit. Because today, how's this? Because today we're going to do a bit of reading. What are we going to be reading today? We're going to be reading from Parashara, Hora, Shastra. Maybe I'm turning the volume down. We're going to be reading the chapter called Graha-Shanti, which means to pacify or make peace with planets. That, in other words, is like saying these are your remedies for your planets. So, actually, Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra does have a chapter about remedies. So there is some authentic. I guess I could take my glasses off until I start reading. There is some authentic source material for finding out about what kind of remedies and things are actually traditional or actually at the root of the traditional. Good morning, John V. Now, let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a bit from a book. I think this is Girish Chandra. I forget his last name. The translator. And if Girish Chandra Sharma, and if we come up with some weird sounding English translation, then we'll look at Sanskrit. What was I going to say? So this part two of the Parashara or Shastra. Basically, part two is very interesting. You get to the second half. Most of part two is talking about how you interpret dashas, which is a real interesting study. And then after that's done, the second half of part two starts to talk about remedies for things that aren't so desirable. So he talks about different kinds of problems and then suggests different kinds of things that you can do about it in a Vedic style, like this kind of ritual or that kind of ritual. Then when you get to this chapter called Graha-Shanti, it's Maitreya, I believe, is the student. Maitreya asks the teacher Parashara, can you give me now you've been mentioning remedies, but just like as appendices to these other topics that you were talking about. Now, can you specifically give me an instruction about remedies? Like, can you concentrate on remedies and tell me the essence of them? And so let's find this chapter. So this is numbered in this edition. It's numbered 86, chapter 86, right? The name of the chapter in the actual book is Graha-Shantyadhyaya, the chapter about pacifying the planets. So Maitreya says, O sage, kindly briefly explain the proprietary measures to alleviate the affliction of the planets for the benefit of mankind. So mankind has various problems. People, human beings, we have various problems that we always face. So Maitreya is asking Parashara to teach him ways that people can better deal with their problems. And he's describing it. Let's see what he says here. The English translation says affliction of the planets. So what does he say here? In Sanskrit, grahanam, dosha. Grahanam dosha. Shantyartha. Grahanam dosha shantartha. For the sake of pacifying the imperfections in the planets, is how he's phrasing the question. So, because this is an astrology book, so in your chart, your problems are going to be signified by afflictions to various planets, debilitations, bad yogas, bad house placements, what have you. So what he's asking about is what can we do about this? Got it? So far, so good? So far, simple, right? Now, when we get to something complicated, or if you have a question about something that I'm reading, let me know. I'll check now and then. So here's the reply from Parashara. He says, "O Brahmana, the great, O Brahman the great." What is that, O Brahman the great? I'm not sure. It'd take me too long to find out, but it sounds so funny, right? O Brahman the great. Whatever characteristics and attributes of the planets like the sun, etc., I have since narrated. See, this is your problem reading an English translation where the English is awful. But so you have to be patient and you have to take your time to try to work through the bad English that you're given and edit it in your own brain so that it makes sense and isn't silly. So he says, "O Brahman the Great, whatever characteristics and attributes of the planets like the sun, etc., I have since narrated. All griefs and happinesses of the living beings are under the control of these planets." So I'll do that for you in this session, okay? I'll make sense out of this. So what he said so far is, hey, so listen carefully. He says, hey, I told you about planets, the sun, the moon, and so on. And each planet has things that it represents. Now, the happiness or distress related to the things the planet represents are, of course, related to those planets. You understand? So, for example, hey Lakshmi. So, for example, Angel, what's up? So, for example, if we teach you that Venus represents marriage, then the happiness or unhappiness of a marriage would be related to the condition of Venus in a chart. It's very simple. That's what he's saying. This is what gets under my nails when something is very simple but it's very hard to understand because of the poor explanation of it. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that the happiness and distress of a particular subject is connected with the planet who signifies that particular subject, right? So you don't even have to do Graha-Shanti starting from a birth chart. You can do your remedial measures without considering your birth chart if you just know what a planet signifies. If you have no energy, for example, then you don't have to look at your birth chart to know that there's a problem related to Mars, because Mars signifies the energy, the impetus, the inspiration, the initiative. So you can spend your time if you want to learn about the mechanics of astrology to discover how is it that this imperfection of Mars is indicated. But if you just want to get the result of getting some energy, you don't even have to bother looking at your chart. You just know, I have low energy. Energy is related to Mars. Let me figure out what kind of things can I do related to Mars. Okay? So far, so good? My glasses are going back on. See, I got to take them on and off because they're only for... Actually, I think I'm getting old enough that they always help me. All right, here we go. So he says, for the attainment of placid peace, perpetual prosperity, immaculate and virtuous knowledge, adequate rainfalls, good longevity, sound health, and righteous power, proprietary measures and different yagyas, sacrificial rites, and active worship of these planets should be performed directly. You have to ask me questions about the thing I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm not going to answer. I guess that might be about what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, if you have a problem, figure out what planet the problem is related to, and then do something that this chapter is going to recommend to do for that planet, and then your problem will improve. Now, that's also a silly way to say it, to say that your problem will improve. The problem doesn't need to improve. The problem exists not in the problem, but the problem exists in our unhappiness. So what needs to improve is our experience of the so-called problem. And that's why these things will work. The techniques that Parashara is going to recommend. Okay, so what he said is, there's various things that people want. People want things like to be peaceful. People want things like to have steady prosperity, a steady financial situation. To know a lot of things, right? To learn. They want to learn. Some people want to learn. Some people want to have food. Some people want to live a long time. Some people want to be healthier. Some people want to be more powerful. Some people want whatever they want. There's a particular proprietary measure, propitiatory measure. So propitiate. No, thank you, Piyush. So propitiate. You know what that means, right? That propitiate means basically to pray. So there's a way to pray, is what he's saying. There's a way to pray that will bring you the thing that you want. There's a way to pray, and there's a way to do an action or a ritual or a yajna or a sacrifice. There's something you can do, or there's some way that you can communicate with the gods that will allow you to get rid of the problems that you don't want to have, or get the things that you do want to have. Now remember, don't be silly in your worldview. If you're silly in your worldview, you can't succeed in life. So a silly worldview means thinking that happiness and distress is outside of you. A proper or mature worldview is to understand that your success and failure and the happiness and sadness that comes therefrom is something that is an experience that you have. So you can gain prosperity easily, actually, if you have the proper worldview, because you won't be relying upon the externals so much. All right. So now let's see. Any questions so far? Let me know if you got any questions. I'll give you a couple of minutes. What we said so far is basically Maitreya is asking Parashara, tell me how people can live a happier life by fixing the problems associated with various planets. And then Parashara says, yeah, people want a whole bunch of different things. Just figure out which planet is associated with that thing that you want or want to get rid of, and do certain kind of a prayer or propitiatory action towards that planet, and you'll get what you need. Ace of 17 asks, if someone is dumb to understand simple things, it's Mercury or Jupiter, right? So if you're thinking, I wish I was smarter, why am I so dumb? Then the problem, it depends on the type of dumbness. If you have a problem with words, understanding words, then it's Mercury. If you have a problem creating concepts, then it's Venus. If you have a problem with the structure of the logic, if you can't follow logic, then it's going to be Saturn. And if you can't apply your knowledge, right? If you can't apply your knowledge, then that's going to be Jupiter, because Jupiter is in control of the righteousness. So Jupiter means you know that something is a certain way. Can you or can you not stick to it? Be righteous. You know that it's wrong to steal. But if your Jupiter is good, then your knowledge will be able to apply to your life, and you're not going to steal. So let's see what else. I got to put on my glasses. Why not? I got them right here in my hand. So Angel says, wait. So since these remedies change your experience or view of it, and not the specific issue at hand, could it be similar to the placebo effect? I didn't say that they don't change the specific issue at hand. Try to understand that reality comes from consciousness, not vice versa. So the way that you feel about the world makes the world take its shape. But it happens slowly. It's not like you're a genie and you can just say, I wish for 45 ice cream cones, and then they appear in front of you. But you can wish for 45 ice cream cones and they will appear in front of you, but it happens slowly, because the matter, physical things, are thick and heavy. Yet they are based upon mental realities. So by changing your mental reality, you change the physical reality. It takes time, and it also has to cooperate with the previous momentum that you've been generating. So I'm not saying that these things that Parashara is going to describe won't make real changes in your life. They will make real changes in your life. But the way that they make the real change is by changing your attitude and conception and experience of life. Somi says he or she doesn't believe in remedies, believes in choosing destiny. Well, that's kind of like a false dilemma, because a remedy is you choose your destiny. You're going to improve your destiny. This is the thing. Like, if you want, you can. This is proactive astrology. You want to improve something in your life, you can do it. The Parashara is saying you can do it. Janvi says, do gemstones really work? Let's see. Let's see if Parashara mentions gemstones at all. Okay. Would you like a spoiler alert? I'll give you a spoiler alert. Whether or not Parashara mentions gemstones, the spoiler alert is no. He doesn't mention gemstones at all. I believe that probably gemstones are something of a non-Indian origin. When I was a kid growing up, I didn't know nothing about astrology except that you could put, I think, a quarter into a gumball machine and get this little rolled up piece of paper out that would tell you your fortune. That's the only thing I knew about astrology. But you know what I did know? I knew that my birthstone was a ruby. So it's very, very, very prevalent in Western astrology to associate gems with astrology. And even if you think about Persia, that's the type of magic that they're into. They're into a lot of scepters and jewels and magic wands and things. So it doesn't really seem like it's a very Indian, originally Indian idea. Though Garuda Purana, which is a later Purana, Garuda Purana does mention that everything has power to it, and crystals have power and gems have power, but it doesn't put it in any astrological context. So Janvi, I know when somebody says astrological remedy, the first thing everybody thinks about is you're going to buy a ring. And that's not actually the original Vedic astrology concept of a remedy. And nor is it really effective. Anything can be effective because a sugar pill can be effective. But it doesn't have its inherent potency in it. So no, Parashara doesn't mention gemstones at all. Now, here's a good question from Lakshmi. If fate has it in for you to rectify your mistakes or your shortcomings, won't you just do it? I mean, come across a way to do it. Whether or not you know astrology, why should one know techniques? Now, this isn't just fate. This is the thing. This is also what Somi said. We're talking about proactivity here now. Now, Parashara is saying, and Maitreya is saying, you take command of your life. See, this is another proof. Remember, I think the last session that we did was on fate and free will. And I'm telling you that it's not the Vedic concept to think that you have no free will. The Vedic concept is that your free will is at the core of your fate. It's what generates your fate. So, Parashara here is saying you choose your destiny. Now choose it wisely. Here's some information about how you can identify the things that you want to change, and here's some ways to change them. That's what the Vedas are all about. 80% of the Vedas are all about that. You want this? Do this. Now you may say, why should I? It's not going against fate. That's the thing, right? If fate has it that I get a wart on my nose, but I don't want a wart on my nose. So am I fighting against fate? Right? Am I fighting against fate if I try to get rid of the wart on my nose? No. I'm just continuing to create my new destiny. Now, the thing is about these remedies, what you'll see is that it doesn't pit you against the gods and the art and the enforcers of fate, but it puts you in harmony with them. So if I have a wart on my nose and I want to get rid of the wart on my nose, and I realize, man, this is because I never washed my face, and I just got all this sweat piling up inside my pores, and I never get rid of this junk. So let me my remedy for getting this big, gigantic red pimple on my nose will be change my behavior. So that's what these remedies are really doing. It's changing your behavior. It's putting your behavior in such a way that it doesn't generate the karma that you don't want. Okay? Alisa asks, so not everyone can diagnose himself, especially someone who has a problem with self-understanding. Yeah, certainly, but if you learn, not everyone can diagnose themselves. Usually I give people too much credit. That sounds funny, right? If you know me. But in my heart, actually, I give too much credit. That's why I get so disturbed when people act like fools, because I don't think that they should act like fools. But it is probably true that most people can't really sort out what they have wrong enough. But I think at least 50% of you can figure out, this is my problem, and this is what I want. And then the most important thing for you to learn then is, what planet is it related to? What do the planets signify? And then you can apply a remedy from that planet. Sri Yukteswar mentions about, Ramu says, right, gemstones, metals, plant origins in Autobiography of a Yogi. But Sri Yukteswar is a person from the 20th century. So here we're talking about Vedic things. Okay. Let's see what else. All right, let's see if I should go on. Wait. Ramuji says, some say that worshipping Shiva is a universal remedy, especially for women who have Jupiter and bad dignity. They show examples of Sita worshipping Shiva throughout her life. Yes, yeah, there are universal remedies, right? This is the whole point of Vedanta, is to identify what is the root cause of all the sufferings. See, the way that the Veda first of all tries to deal with people who are very caught up in their immediate situations. So the Veda says stuff like, oh, you want a new cow? Which in these days would be like, oh, you want a new car? All right, here's a ritual you can do. Be sure to get a new car. So a lot of the Veda is just dealing with petty people who are caught up in their petty things. And they'll have very specific things for very specific gods for very specific things. But then the Veda progresses on to the next type of person, and it says, look, if you really want to be peaceful, if you really want to be happy, you have to get moksha, you have to get knowledge, you have to get rid of your desires. So the whole point of Vedanta is really to get away from the idea of thinking, I need this particular remedy for that particular thing. But let's be practical. Not everybody's ready for Vedanta, right? So this astrology is for practical people. It's not for spiritualists who are ready for Vedanta. It's for practical people. People that are ready for Vedanta can study Vedanta. But what Vedanta says is the origin of all the suffering is something called avidya, which is lack of self-knowledge. And so the ultimate remedy for anything would be to get self-knowledge, atma vidya. Then you wouldn't need to do any remedy. But the beautiful thing about all the small rituals and proprietary measures that the Vedas recommend is that they actually are giving you, just like right now, I'm actually giving you, not that it's not coming from me, but because I studied the Vedas, I'm actually giving you some Vedantic knowledge now, even though you only tuned in, most of you tuned in to hear some astrological stuff, right? So similarly, the Vedas do the same thing. They will actually give you self-knowledge, even in the petty rituals. So there's actually, when we get to actually seeing what Parashara recommends for the Graha-Shanti, you'll be amazed at how enlightening they are and how they do get to the root of the problem. I would say gemstones don't do anything. All right, let's go on. So this is what we've read so far. We've read that Maitreya asks Parashara, to teach me specifically about remedies for planets, the ways that people can improve the problems that they may have. And then Parashara's answer is yes. First, all you have to do is understand how a problem is related with the planet. And the way that he suggests to do that is he says planets signify various things. So if you have a planet with something that, if you have a problem with the thing that the planet signifies, then you know you need to do something in relation to that planet. That's what he's saying. Then he's going to say, so he said now he's going to start to talk about what do you do in relation to that planet. Okay? So the first thing that he's going to say is what this translator calls an idol. So, which is kind of an annoying word, but you're going to make a murti. This is the first thing he says is you have to have some focal point for interacting with this planet. You have if you have some problem or you want to improve something in relation with a subject connected to a particular planet, then you're going to need some symbolic way of interacting with that planet, right? Am I right? Maybe it's your ruby ring. Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe it's your ruby ring that reminds you of the sun. But Parashara is not going to recommend that. So you're going to need some kind of a form to focus yourself on. So what he's saying is you should make some sort of a murti. It's called murti. You should make some kind of a form of the planet. Now here's what he says. The idol of the sun, should be made out of copper. The moon in spatika, which is a kind of stone. Mars in red sandal, Mercury and Jupiter in gold, Venus in silver, Saturn in iron, Rahu in lead, and Ketu in brass. All right. So now remember the cultural situation here is that we don't do this stuff anymore. So this seems like, whoa, I got to make a statue out of gold or material. But in those days, people were like, all right, I'll do that because they were really into this kind of stuff. But let's hear what he has to say. He says, look, the best thing that you can do for placating the planets is to make a form of that planet. If you're dealing with the sun, make it out of copper. If you're dealing with the moon, make it out of marble. If you're dealing with Mars, make it out of sandalwood. If you're dealing with Mercury or Jupiter, make this statue out of gold. If you're dealing with Venus, make it out of silver. If you're dealing with Saturn, make it out of iron, Rahu with lead, Ketu and brass. Okay? Then he says, alternatively, you can draw a picture on a cloth. So that's a lot simpler, right? So he's saying, so there's not just one way to do a remedy. This is the important thing. There's not just one way to do a remedy and everybody has to do it the same way. There's different ways to do the remedies, depending on how much you can get down to the essence. You don't really have to do all of the elaborate externals of the remedy. Depending on how much you can't get the essence, the externals are really important because at least you're doing something. It engages you in some activity. That's positive. But if you get to the essence, you don't need to create a gigantic gold statue of Jupiter. You can draw a picture of Jupiter. Okay? So he's saying you can also draw, and he recommends that you draw it on a silk cloth with the color ascribed to the planet, as he stated earlier. So he said he said earlier that there's certain colors for certain planets, right? So should we talk about these colors? Well, the color for the sun is going to be like a burned red color, okay, like a orange brown, like tan color. The color for the moon is going to be very milky. The color for Mars is going to be red like blood. Tuesday, Wednesday, the color for Mercury is yellowy, but on the green side of yellow. And the color for Jupiter is on the orange side of yellow. Right? So Jupiter and Mercury are both yellow, but Mercury is on the green side of yellow and Jupiter is on the orange side of yellow. What comes after Jupiter? Friday, Venus. The color for Venus is sparkles. Okay, so it's going to be like crystal clear rainbow sparkly things, multicolors. The rainbow, yeah, they say rainbow. The color for Saturn is black or very dark purple or dark blue. Rahu, Ketu, their colors are smoke, so grays. So you could draw, you could get a piece of paper or a piece of silk and paint a picture. So if you're making a Murti statue, then you will make it out of a certain kind of metal. If you're drawing a picture, then draw it on a certain kind of colored paper or cloth. Okay. I know, actually, Jimmy, I've needed these glasses for a while. It's just the first time you see me wearing them because it's the first time I'm reading a book to you, right? So, okay, then you put the, and then he says put the image of the planet in the direction associated with the planet, right? So this is the way that to start connecting with the planet. If you're going to want to improve a planet, you're going to have to connect with it better. So make an image of it. Best if you can draw it. If you can't draw it, find one, but don't just find the first one that you find on Google. Find one that makes sense, that matches the descriptions. Color it with the color of the planet. Put it in the direction of the planet. I'm not sure if I can remember the directions of the planets offhand. Jupiter and Mercury are in the east. Saturn is in the west. Moon and Venus are below ground, which for most of us means south. And but if you're in the southern hemisphere, Mercury and the moon will be north. And then that leaves us with the sun, right? 2, 4, 6, 7. The sun would be in the north if you're in the northern hemisphere, or in the south if you're in the southern hemisphere. It'll be up. Mars will also be up with the sun. I'm not quite sure where Rahu and Ketu go. They might go over with Saturn in the west. So, like, make a space in your house or in a room and put the image of the planet that you're going to be focusing on. Put it on that wall. Now, should it be facing? See, this is a question that you need to ask the pujaris. Should the image be facing the direction the planet likes to be faced, or should it be actually in the direction? As far as I've seen in temples, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I've seen in temples, they always put the Murti looking in the direction that it likes. It likes to look in the direction. So, for example, most of the deities, Murtis, they like to look east. So they'll actually be on the west side of the temple and facing east. So you should try to do that. Okay? Any questions about this so far? Let me know if you have any questions. He's going to explain how to draw the picture or how to shape the Murti. He's going to do that next. But let's see if you have any questions about this idea that you have to make a figure of the planet. It makes sense, right? Now, you might be able to make a gigantic statue and put it in your house, or you might be able to just have a picture in your wallet that you take out every once in a while. You don't have to do everything. Everybody doesn't have to do it to the same extent. It's not one size fits all. There's different sizes for different people. All right, shall we continue? See what else he says? He's not really gotten to the great part yet. Actually, what I'm hoping to do today is get you to the really good part, and then in the next 7 or 9 weeks, we can do the mantra for each planet and talk about the mantra for each planet. Because most of this chapter is just the lead into that. Yes, Oceana, I've tried these remedies. No, actually I haven't tried, like most of the ritual stuff I haven't tried, but the mantras I've all tried. And the rituals I've tried in my mind and made sense of them. And they work wonderfully. They do, and people who I've helped to do them, they work wonderfully for those people too. These are very good things. And you're going to see actually that this chapter of Parashara, Hora Shastra, is absolutely genius, especially when we get to the part about the mantra. Angel, could I use a figure that just reminds me of a planet? Like a golden colored hotel figure that just reminds me of Jupiter? You can do that. You can do whatever you want. Like I'm saying, it's not one size fits all. But as you're going to see in the next section, it's not what Parashara recommends. He recommends that you... Because if you have a planet, if you pick a form that reminds you of the sun, what are you looking at when you see that form that reminds you of your sun? You're looking at your conception of the sun. Right? This reminds me, if I say, wow, this flower reminds me of you, then what I'm seeing my concept of you in that flower, right? So if you're saying, well, this image reminds me of the sun god or the sun, by looking at that image, you're looking at your concept of the sun god. So it's even better if you can get Parashara's conception of the sun god. Because if you're trying to improve your connection with the sun god, then you don't really want to look at him through your conception of the sun god. You want to look at him through Parashara or through some objective conception of the sun god. So it would be better to actually form the image of the sun god according to the way Parashara is going to describe the sun god. But if you're adverse to that, then just go ahead and pick up whatever reminds you of the sun god, but it won't be as effective, okay? Okay, so let's see what he says for the forms. Thank you, SS. I just got a $5 donation from SS. Thank you. What if all your planets, Yeti Heart, you're trying to ask me this question again. I kind of ignored this question on purpose because I feel like it's off topic and I don't want to answer off topic questions. So if it's not off topic, maybe I see the topic. So how do you pick this, what planet to deal with, right? You got a situation where all your planets are messed up. So which one do you deal with? Well, this is where you might want to have an astrologer help you figure out. It's not a simple thing. Like somebody earlier said, can somebody diagnose themselves? So in this complicated situation, then you probably can't diagnose yourself. So have an astrologer figure out. What the astrologer would try to figure out is, what's the planet causing the affliction? Right? Like in your case, if you got all these planets combust by the sun, then you're really going to want to be doing Graha-Shanti for the sun. Because the sun is the one that's doing the mischief there to the other guys. Primarily. You see, if you have a lot of problems or difficulties, then you're also going to need to do a lot of work, just like any kind of therapy. So you would start, you'll have a therapeutic regimen, which isn't just a one-off. You'll have to go in stages. But the first address that you should do is address the sun, because the sun is combusting all your planets. And then the one that's the most combust, after you've gotten some peace with the sun, then go and look at the planet that's the most combust and do some work on that planet. That's my recommendation. All right, so let's see what he says now about what these planets look like. He says the sun god should be perceived duly seated on a lotus, adorned with a lotus flower in one hand, with lotus-like radiance, aboard a chariot drawn by 7 horses, and with 2 beautiful arms. All right, so the sun god has 2 arms. And he's got a lotus flower in one of the hands. So his other hand apparently is empty. And the sun god he's seated on a lotus. So what's a lotus? A lotus is a big old flower that opens up beautifully and has this thing in the middle. It has this very conspicuous thing in the middle. It's usually yellow. It's kind of like a inverted, like an ice cream. It's like a cone. And you can put things on top of that cone. So it's like a seat. So imagine these gods are going to be seated inside these lotus flowers. Now, if you're going to say, what does it mean? Why are they seated in the lotus flower? That's the beauty. You need to think about that, right? You need to that's the part that you'll be meditating on. That's the thing that you'll be contemplating. What is the significance of why is this person in a lotus flower? If you just come up with the image that you think of that reminds you of the sun, you won't get these beautiful insights. Why are they seated in a lotus flower? The lotus flower is Padma. Padmaja. Or what is it? Pankaja. Pankaja. Lotus is Pankaja. Pankaja. Panka means mud, junk, dirt. And Ja is born. So it's something that's born from filth. Is a lotus flower. I mean, you ever step inside a lotus pond? It's full of stinky, filthy mud on the bottom. But look at these beautiful things that are coming out of the mud. So a lotus flower is called pankaj because it shows this beautiful thing that's growing out of this miserable stuff, this yucky stuff. So this is very important that gods are seated in lotuses because it means that they're not afflicted by the miseries of life. They have some connection to the mud, but they're not in it. And from this mud comes this beautiful thing. Is very important if you are trying to improve yourself, right? To look at a god who's seated on a lotus flower. The lotus flower grows from mud. We're stuck in mud, right? So we want this. So we don't need to get out of the mud, but we need a lotus flower. Okay. So the sun god will be seated on a lotus, adorned with a lotus flower in one hand. So he's carrying a lotus flower too. So he's going to offer that lotus flower to you. You need a lotus. You're in the mud, you need this. And has a lotus-like radiance. So I wonder what the Sanskrit is for that. Padma Sanaha, seated in a lotus. But Padmasana also means seated in the Padma Asana, which is this asana, like the typical basic yogic asana. Padmasanaha, Padma Hastaha. He has a Padma in his hand. Padma Patras. I see like a leaf of a lotus. Padma Patrasama. Duty. His duty, the duty is the complexion, looks like, is the same as, is sama, the petals of the lotus. So this person, the sun god, is beautiful. They have a beautiful complexion. And it's a softer complexion, right? It's like a flower petal complexion. Aboard a chariot drawn by 7 horses. Okay, so that's important too. The sun has a chariot drawn by 7 horses. So where is this? He's seated on a lotus. That lotus is in this chariot. It's being carried by this chariot. The chariot is being drawn by 7 horses. If you contemplate on what the 7 horses are, you'll get various understandings. And it has 2 arms. 2 arms are friendly, okay, and worldly. 2 arms are friendly and normal. 4 arms are otherworldly and superior. So the gods that have 2 arms are more normal. They'll help you with your everyday things. They're not going to say, well, you need to be enlightened. They'll just say, no, you have a problem with your career, let me help. Okay? Any questions about how the sun looks? Right, Melissa? Yeti says she's been wearing a ruby for a month. Does that at least help the sun? Like I said, the ruby things aren't indigenously Indian. The gemstone stuff probably isn't indigenously Indian. You'll see from here what's indigenously Indian. This is totally indigenously Vedic, right? Make a murti, put it in a direction. It's got lotus flowers, 2 arms, 4 arms. This is so authentically Vedic. There's other stuff about the jewels and stuff is more of a Persian flavor. All right, any questions about how the sun looks? Shall we move on to the moon? There's a lag, the lag. All right. I shall move on to the moon. Let's go to the moon, Alice. So he says, think of the moon. Now he's also saying this is how you... I don't know if this guy's adding this into his English translation. Actually, he's missing some things from his Sanskrit too. Let's talk about this with the sun. Saptashva Sayutam Ratascha. He has this chariot that's linked to 7 horses. Dvi Bhuja Shcha. He has 2 hands, 2 arms. Divakaraha. Okay, that's just the name for the sun. But that's also important. The name for the sun is also important to how to conceive of the sun. The name for the sun is Divakara, the one who makes the day. He makes things bright. All right, let's go on and talk about the moon. So the moon is Shveta. Shveta is milky white. Shveta, Shvetambara means wrapped in white. White and wrapped in white. White robed. We didn't even hear about the sun's clothes. So it didn't say anything about the sun's clothes. But about the moon, they say wrapped in white cloth. Sweta Shvetambaro Devo, this god. Deshascha, 10, right? Deshashva. Deshashva. So they've got 10, this one has a 10-horsed chariot. Maybe next week we might say a word or two about why one is 7, why one is 10. The moon has a 10-horse cart. The moon has Shveta Abhushanaha. All white jewelry. So now think about the moon. Did the sun say anything about clothes? Nothing. The only thing the sun has is a lotus flower, which was important, and a hand to offer to you. The moon, all of a sudden, we're talking about clothes, and now we're talking about jewelry. Bhushana. Shveta Bhushana. So everything with the moon is white. The moon's white, wrapped in white. It has 10 horses, white horses, I'm sure, and has white jewelry. So, what's the feeling that you get then of the moon versus the sun? The moon is feminine, right? This is a feminine planet. And what is this therefore going to have to do with? The sun is going to have to... Your remedies that you will go to the sun for will have to do with things like confidence, ability to persevere, ability to be strong in the midst of problems, right? Like a lotus flower, graceful in the midst of problems, strong in the midst of problems. What you go to the moon for are things about your mind. What is the mind? The mind is the thing that wants beauty, it wants love, it wants attention, it's the house of desire is the mind. So the moon's image is going to be very desirable. It's going to have white, silky clothes. It's going to have white jewels. What is white jewels? Pearls. The moon's going to be wearing pearls and other white stones and strands and the earrings in all sorts of ways. Very well decorated. Because the moon has to do with beauty, beautiful objects, desirable things. Now, but look at this. This is important, and you get this a lot with all the Vedic images of feminine things. Gada hasto. What's in the hand of the moon? This is interesting. The moon of the hand has a gada. A gada is a bat, or mace, to say it properly. A bludgeon. It's a weapon that's blunt. You hit people. That's what a gada is. Sun didn't have a gada. But the sun is very masculine. But the sun didn't have a gada. The sun had a lotus flower. This is nice because the male energy of the sun will give you a lotus flower. That's what you need from the sun. You need the protection of the sun. But the female energy of the moon needs to be strong. needs to be stronger. The male energy needs to be gentler. The female energy needs to be stronger. So what the moon is offering is a gada, a club. What's a club for? A club is for curbing down enemies, for bashing things down. So to bash the sorrows, and to bash the sadnesses that comes from unfulfilled desires. That's what the moon's carrying a gada for. So on one hand there's a gada hasto, and then dvibahu shcha, two-armed, vigatayato. And the other hand is giving a blessing. So that's the moon. The sun we didn't know what the sun is doing with his other hand. But with the moon we get both of the hands described. The moon's got a gada, a mace in one hand, and a blessing in the other hand. Okay, any questions about that? About the moon? Now, let me know if you have questions. Just ask questions, because otherwise I'll wait. Okay, so the Mars. Now they're going to talk about Mars. He's got. Let's see what he says. Raktam al ya baro. Raktamalya ambara. So the Mars has rakta stuff. Rakta means red, bloodish, flushed, passionate, energetic, alive, red. So Mars has got red stuff. Moon is white. It's delicate. It's gentle. It's beautiful. Mars is red. It's passionate. It's invigorated. It's turned on. It's hot. And it's got mala. I wonder why Mars is wearing mala. Mala means beads. It's not bhushana. Mars is not wearing jewelry. Like the moon is wearing jewelry, Mars is wearing mala. Mala are beads for protection, beads for, but really in Mars's case it's like a bead for protection, a bead for performing some sacrifice or ritual or things. So red malas. Red malas are Shiva's malas. Like I said, at the heart, as I said earlier, she's asking, I think it's I can't see the picture. Does an image of Rohini work as an image of the moon just the same? As I said, if you want, you can make up anything you want. Everybody doesn't have to do it exactly the same way. But as I explained to, I think, Angel, if you do it Parashar's way, you'll get Parashar's conception of the moon. If you do it in whatever way you happen to do it, then you'll get whatever conception you happen to have, which isn't really what you want. Otherwise, if you had a great conception, you really wouldn't want to be working on this planet. So this is the other thing that you find. Just the fact that you're going to have to surrender to Parashara telling you what to do is putting you in line with the universe, which is the reason why you're suffering in the first place, is because you are out of line with the universe. You're functioning out of harmony. The previous things that you've either didn't even know were out of harmony when you're doing them, not because you're innocent, but because you're ignorant. We're all ignorant. Like we insult people without even knowing that we're insulting them. Or we do horrible things without even knowing that we're doing horrible things. Not because we're innocent, because we're ignorant. So innocence is forgivable, but ignorance is not. So there's so much of this stuff, acting improperly. Now, just the fact of just accepting that Parashara is going to define what the what the sun looks like, what the moon looks like. Even if you open your heart to that, you've already made so much progress to improving your karma. And that you're accepting Parashara and not just Joe Schmo. You've made much progress because you've made progress to accepting a valid authority, a Vedic authority, not a speculative authority. So Mars has got red malas, red clothes, and has 4 arms. This is an interesting. Mars has got 4 arms. And those arms, why does he have 4 arms? Because he likes to have a lot of weapons. So his arms have got a sword, an axe, and a club. And then one of the 4 hands is giving a blessing. So he's got 3 weapons and 1 blessing. And he's riding on an animal. So the moon, we didn't even hear. Oh, the moon is riding on a chariot with 10 horses. The sun is riding on a chariot with 7 horses. Mars is not on a chariot. Mars is on a 4-footed creature. He's got 4 arms. Okay. Chatur Bahu Mogalo. Is that a peacock? You might be riding on a peacock. So this is an amazing image of Mars. Okay, so you're going to envision Mars as reddish, invigorated. Why? Because your problems related with Mars are going to be 1, lacking bravery, 2, lacking passion, 3, lacking energy, 4, lacking muscle, strength, and discipline. So look at the image that you're going to see. A reddish person with 3 weapons, riding on an animal. So he's tamed an animal. All right, so I'm going to mark that we got up to Mars. So we got up to the 8th text. What's really going to get good here is when we get to the mantras. So we almost are there. We just have to do what Mercury looks like, what Jupiter looks like, what Saturn, Rahu, Ketu. And then we're going to hear a little bit about how you would then worship that image, what mantra you chant for the image, and more about what kind of charitable deeds you do for the planet. So let's do this as a series, okay? So look, let me answer this one last question here. Nina M says, do I need a remedy for Mars if it's retrograde? Well, Parashara, actually, look at the first thing that he said in the chapter. Go back and look at this recording, because I know a lot of you don't show up when it starts. Parashara is... Wait, one question at a time. A lot of you guys weren't here when the thing starts. Try to be. Remember, look, this happens the same time every week on the same day. I do this live free YouTube class. And if you subscribe to the channel, maybe you'll get like a notice. If you subscribe and click to get notifications, you might get notice so you could get here when it starts. Because a lot of important information gets in the beginning. So remember what he said in the beginning of the chapter was, how will you know what planet needs to be propitiated? He says it doesn't have anything to do with your chart. You don't have to read your chart. You can read your chart if you have a complicated situation. But what he suggested was just think of what problem you have or what you want to improve, and then figure out what planet does it relate to. By knowing what the planets signify, you would know what your problem is related to, and then you do some propitiatory act to that planet. So just because your Mars is retrograde, that doesn't mean that you should do this or that. What you should figure out what kind of remedies or therapeutic things you need to do is, what's the thing that you want to improve? If the thing that you want to improve has to do with bravery, strength, energy, etc., then you need to work with Mars. If the thing that you want to improve has to do with beauty, happiness, internal feelings, emotions, desires, being in control or out of control, then it has to do with the moon. If it has to do with grace under pressure and ability to be strong and graceful, then it has to do with the sun. See? And then Angel also says, how did Parashara get to know what the planets looked like? Well, Parashara is Vyasadev's father. So he's an extremely elevated sage. Like, I know people love people like Yukteswar and or the other people that are like really modern day saints, because they've done some sadhana, they've done some practice. They didn't just talk or read a book, they actually put in some practice. They did sadhana, and by what sadhana means spiritual practice or practice, discipline. What practice does is it gives you a perfection. And if you do a sadhana of yoga, your mind comes directly into contact. It comes more clearly into contact with reality. So, what to speak of epically great yogis like Parashara or Vyasadeva? Just like a modern day yogi, like a Ramakrishna or the people that we know of these days. They're great people. They've done some sadhana. They've had deep experiences of reality. Think about the epically, historically great yogis like Parashara, Vyasadeva, and so forth. The sadhana that they did and put in, and then think about the value of the words that they left behind. So that's why we want to, that's how, whether or not he gets to know the image of what they look like, his conception of what the planets look like is a very, very elevated conception, and it would be helpful for us. We would get a better relationship with the planets if we could understand his conception of it. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so I'll sign off now, and I hope I'll see you again next week. Come back, tell a friend, bring your grandma, and we'll have another party about the astrological remedies. Okay, everybody? Thank you so much. Have a great week.